Hello everybody, this is Astocky here, and today I'm going to be showing you part 2 of my how to make your own DayZ server video. In this part I'm going to cover how to add scripts to the server and then how to update the Battleye filters to make sure that people don't get kicked for script restrictions. There's a lot of people who complain an awful lot about Battleye and say that it's a broken piece of crap, but I think for what it's designed for, it works very well. I mean, it does an awful lot of checking very quickly, and it does a good job of stopping hackers. Clearly, hackers still get through, but with a password or a whitelist and some script protection, you can have a fairly safe server. So, the two scripts I'm going to be installing are the self blood bag script. You could see this to be a little bit cheaty, depending on how you like to run your server, particularly if you're running a big server with lots of people. If you're running a small server though, it's actually quite useful. The other thing that makes it, I guess the thing that people complain about the most about self-blood bagging is the fact that, I could shoot someone and then they could self-blood bag and then they'd be healed again. It doesn't quite work like that. It actually takes 3 times as long to blood bag yourself as it does to blood bag somebody else. And you also can't do it very often, and if you're bleeding or in combat, it doesn't work. So with those timers and things in there, it makes it very hard to do yourself when you're in combat. So each to their own, whether you like it or not, that's totally up to you, but you're going to want this particular thing, and here is the website for it, plus I'll post a link in the description. The next one we're going to install is the Sarge AI mod version 1.5. Now this particular mod is a really cool mod that spawns in bandits and military and survivors as well, and it spawns them in sometimes in teams, and I very recently saw a chopper fly over, so it spawns a bunch of different things in just to add a bit of atmosphere to the game if you're playing either by yourself, single player like. Remember, this isn't single player, this is running a server and your client on the same machine, so it's more resource intensive than single player. And then there's also the ability to, if you have a small server with only a couple of people on it, and you want to work as a team, to make it feel kind of more like you're playing together and working together. So here are the two things, here are the two websites. The very first thing we're going to need though is we're going to need a thing called PBO Manager, and I put in beta, and the version is 1.4. So we're going to go here to PBO Manager Tools, Armaholic, and you're going to want to come down, download this from just here, and then once you've downloaded, install it, and then everything's sweet, it's installed. It'll associate itself with PBO files in Windows, and that's important because you're going to need to do some stuff with PBOs very soon. So we're going to close that down now. To download the Sarge AI, you want to come over here to the right hand side, click on download zip. That'll package it all together and download it, and then you want to keep this web page open because it lists the specifics, and I'm going to be referring back to it, of how to actually go about installing it. There's quite a lot of information in here. You don't necessarily need all of it, but I'll kind of explain it and we'll go through it. And then same for the self blood bag. What you want to do is you want to come down here, you want to download at the bottom this particular file here, player_selfbloodbag.sqf. You don't need the FN self actions file if you're running DayZ 1.7.7 because it has a different process. But now that we've got those files and downloaded them and installed the PBO manager, I'm going to run you through the process of how to actually do it. So the next thing you want to do is you want to jump to where you installed your server, which in my case is just here, and you want to go to, the very first thing you want to do is you want to go to your multiplayer missions file. So just here, multiplayer missions. Now DayZ_1.shanaris is where the mission file for my server is located. So we're going to open that up, and you can see in here we have 3 files, not very much information. So we're going to start with the self blood bag script. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up the folder where I save that, which is DayZ, just here. So we come down, there was player selfbloodbag.sqf. So I'm just going to push that over to the side for a moment so that it's out of the way, assuming I can do that without messing things up. Maybe that will happen, maybe that won't. Not looking that good for me. I've got it stuck in the recording window. There we go, maximize it, that'll fix it. Or not. Okay, I am ever so slightly stuck. Darn it. Okay, I'm just going to pause recording for a second. I'll be back in a moment. Sorry about that, that was just ridiculous. My entire scroll bar was covered up by my recording box, so I couldn't see it. Okay, so yeah, we need that self blood bag file. Now the next thing we want to do is we want to follow the descriptions of what this says for how to install it. So we come down here. The very first thing you want to do is you want to open. Now we've already opened the mission.pbo. It's set up differently because we're running on a server that already has the mission file unpacked, and then it says you want to access your init.sqf. So here is the file. However you want to open it, it's not really that important how you open it. So here we are. Now it says you want to go to just before progress loading screen 1. So here is progress loading screen 1. So we're going to come to the beginning of that line, press enter, and then we're going to add in the piece of code that it tells us to add in, which is call compile blah 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 blah. So we're going to paste that just where it said to. So get that back in so you can see it. There we go. Now we're going to save that file. Now it says now create a new folder within your mission called custom. So we're going to save this, we're going to close that script down. We're going to go to our mission folder, we're going to create a new folder just like it said to, and we're going to call it, and we're going to pretend we can spell. We're going to call it custom. And it's going to create a new empty file in there called compiles.sqf. So we're going to custom, go new text document, and we just delete all of that out and then give it the name that it says to. Now if you've got file extensions hidden, you'll have to show file extensions, otherwise when you do that it will call it compiles.sqf.text and then it won't work. So you have to give it that correct name, and then you have to open up your compiles.sqf and add this line of code in there. Really simple, just a single line of code. Once again, edit, paste that in there, and then say save. It has actually put it on one line. I've just got word wrap turned on, so you can see it's just one line. Actually, you can see that from the line numbering as well. So we'll save that, close that, and then you need to copy. It says copy this particular file in, but we're actually going to skip that bit, and we're going to do this next line, which is copy player self-bloodbag.sqf in there. And the reason for that is that we need to make sure that we have everything set up correctly for DayZ 1.7.7, and like I said, remember that's a little bit different than it was for older versions. So we can't actually copy his file that he's put in there. We have to get a different one, and this is why it's important to make sure you have the PBO manager installed. Because what you have to do is you have to come back to your Armor 2 Arrowhead folder, open up your DayZ folder, open up add-ons, open up DayZcode.pbo. Now when you double click, your PBO manager will pop up like this. You want to open it up, go into compile, and if we fly down a little bit here, you'll see there's a file called fn_selfactions.sqf. So that was the name we were asked to look for a moment ago. And just going to get myself back to the multiplayer missions folder we need to go to. So here we are, back in the same place we created those other folders a moment ago, and we are going to drag that file out of PBO Manager and drop it just there. So you can see we dragged it out, dropped it, and it's created that file. So now we can close the PBO Manager. If at any stage it asks you to update it, say no thank you, I don't wish to update that. Because if you do update that, that will mess up your DayZ file, which can give you issues when you get onto servers and things like that. It'll give you a problem. I'm not sure exactly what problem it'll be because it really depends. So now that we've done that, what we want to do is come down a little bit and follow this particular bit of information here. So you want to open the file that we've just put in there, which is this one. So we're going to go open. You can see there's lots of information in there. What you want to do is you want to look for this line just here, _can do. So you can either scroll up and down. Like I said, there's a fair bit in here, but there it is, _can do. So just after that, so you want to enter and tab down 2 lines. You want to add in this block of code here. So it starts with Crix's self blood bag start and ends with Crix's self blood bag end. So we paste that in there. You can see the whole thing's gone in. Then we hit save and then have fun. So that is now the blood bag set up and installed. So what we could do is we could run the server right now and we could test it and everything would work. Now I know that everything works because I've done this a few times before. With earlier versions you could potentially get some script kicks, but the way blood bagging has been changed in 1.7.7 means, certainly in my experience, there are no Battleye filter changes required to get that installed. So the next thing we're going to need to do now is we're going to install the Sarge AI. We're going to do it all at once because it's just easiest that way. So we're going to come back to our mission folder, just like this here. So I'm just going to put that somewhere where it doesn't get in the way. And we're going to need, not our add-ons folder, we're going to need to go back to where we have all of our files saved, which for me is just here. And what did I call that when I downloaded it? There we go, Sarge AI Master, and you can see I downloaded it a couple of days ago, but we will open that up, and here is a folder. So we open that folder up, and there's a lot of information just there. So we're not going to copy all of those folders over, because not all of them are needed. What we do need to do though is follow the instructions that it has just here. So the very first thing we're going to need to do is we are going to scroll down, scroll down, scroll down, scroll down till we get to the installation screens. So the first step is unPBO your mission. Well, we've already seen that our missions were correctly PBO'd and unPBO'd, so we don't need to do that. We need to go to our missions folder and we need to copy the add-ons over. So here's the add-ons folder, so you drag that whole thing and drop it over. You can see we have the three parts of the add-ons that we needed. So that was step 1, step 2, and step 3 done. Now the next thing we need to do is check out the init.sqf file. We don't need to check anything out. That's only necessary if it's compiled. Ours is already uncompiled. So all we need to do is add this code to the end of the init.sqf. So we copy it, we go back to the missions file, we edit the SQF, go right to the bottom, and then as the very last section, we paste that in there. So you can even, if you want, add a comment in. Just so that you know what it is that the code's coming up. And there are lots of different ways you can do this, but just in case anyone ever looks at it in the future or wants to know what something is, you can see here we have it all. So we're going to click the save button to save that and then close it down. Now the next thing that they are telling us to do is we need to open up descriptions.ext and we need to add this line at the very end. So once again we go back to our mission folder, we edit this file, we go to the very last line of it and we put in include add-on Sarge SAR define HPP. So we've now done that. We'll close that down. Back to here, we now need to adjust the server cleanup.fsm. Now this particular file you will need to check out, so you will need the DayZ PBO manager to open this up. So we go back to Armor 2 Operation Arrowhead. Now you want to find your DayZ server PBO file. I know that sounds a bit complicated, but it's actually not too bad. What you need to do is find the particular folder that your server is in. This would be a lot easier if I name things a little bit more conveniently. Unfortunately for me, I don't do that. I don't know why I don't do that, I just don't. But clearly that's the configuration files for it, so that's not where we want to go. We have user config, that's definitely not it. I thought it would have been called like DayZ server, but it turns out it's not. There we go, at Hive. I don't know why it's called that, but that's the one that we want. And so we can see here we have an add-ons, and here we have DayZ server PBO. Now, it always makes sense to copy and take a backup of that particular file, and I always rename it, .back just so that it knows it doesn't need to try to open it. But this is where we double click on it, and once again we open it back up, and inside of this file under System you can see there is server cleanup.fsm. So we drag that out and drop it, and now this is the file that we need to make the changes in. So we go back to our little setup we had before, and it says somewhere around about line 290 we need to look for this particular file, and you can see we need to change the first line of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that very first line, and I'm going to open up the server.fsm, the server cleanup file, and then I'm just going to search for it, because searching is by far the easiest way to find things. Okay, so we can't find the text. What that means is it is likely spaced out differently. This will sometimes happen depending on exactly which version of the server you're running, but if you grab a chunk of the code and search for that, you'll most likely be able to find it. So the particular piece of code we were looking for was, you can see here, if open bracket count units underscore x equals 0, close brackets. So you can see it's the same thing, just this one here has double brackets, this one here only has single brackets. So that's the bit of code we're looking for. It's at around 290, this is 335, that's definitely close enough. So what we want to do is go back, grab the piece of code that it says. You can see that second line is not changed. All that is there for is the cleanup, deleting a group part to make sure you got the right thing. So you can see here, cleanup, deleting a group. And so again, this is where things are worded just a little bit differently. I'm going to try and see if I can bring the two of them up side by side there so you can see them both. Not going to be an easy way to do this, I don't think. Maybe like that. So you can see here we have code that is similar. Sorry, we need the first line. So you can see we have code that is quite similar while still being a little bit different. So if count units, then go to the next line. So we have dialog cleanup deleting a group plus string underscore x, whereas this one just says delete group. So it uses slightly different code. It uses a slightly different setup. So what we want to do is we want to think, is that the right piece? It says cleanup deleting a group. It looks very similar. So what I'm going to do is, just to make sure that that is the correct piece of code, I'm going to grab that again and search just one more time, because you don't know what you don't know. So we can see that's the only place that code is located, which means this is definitely what we want. So we're going to grab this code here, which is what it says to use, and we are going to replace that block of 3 lines of code with that single block of code. So you can see it's basically replaced it, and what that does is it adds in this and not SAR protect. So that's a bit of code that makes sure that it won't delete the group if the group is something that was created by the SAR.jI. It lets that handle its own cleanup. So the reason I talked about that bit of how to check things, how to look for them, is because this next bit you will either have this one or you will have this one, depending on how your system is set up. And again, they're probably not going to be exactly the same, but they'll be very similar. So what we're going to look for is we're going to look for this part here, vehicle X in safety. So again, copy, paste, find it, there we go, we found it. So we need to now look to see if it's the first one or the second one. So if it starts with if vehicle underscore X is not equal to underscore X, so you can see that's quite different there. So we need to find out which one we have. So we have if vehicle underscore X is not equal to underscore X, which is the second one. So that means we need to take this piece of code to use to replace it. If you had the first one, use that. Second one, use that. So it's pretty clear instructions. It's just important to make sure that you get it right. So here we grab all of that and paste that in. And once again, I'm just going to turn off word wrap so you can see. It goes out as one big long line, and the only change again is it's just put this get variable check in there for Sarge to make sure that it's not part of the Sarge AI. And basically what that will do is that will stop it from killing what it thinks is a hacker when it's actually one of the AI you've created. So now that we've made those two changes, again we save it, we close it. Now this is very important. If you don't do this next step, everything will fail to work. What you need to do is with your PBO you have open, you need to grab the file you just updated, drag it and drop it into the folder, the system part. So you need to make sure that it highlights blue and then let it go. Now this will pop up saying, warning, this file has a digital signature. That's okay, it will corrupt the digital signature of that file, but that file isn't a signature that the server checks on your login, it's just a signature of the server. This is something that means DayZ itself, as a hive that manages all of the servers linked together, which is how you get your persistence across multiple servers, it will no longer recognize this as being a legitimate DayZ because it's modified. So again, we have this, press OK again. For some reason you press it twice, and now we can see if we look at these two files, they should be very, very slightly different sizes. So yeah, we can see one is 242 bytes at the end, one is 296. So you can see that it has imported it correctly and they are slightly changed, and also your file that you just edited disappears altogether because it's been moved into that folder now. So we come back in here. Now we have these bits that it says you should use for debugging. I don't bother to do that. Clearly you could do that. I really don't know what the purpose of that, what that exact bit is. Now the next thing, it says test without Battleye enabled to make sure that it works. And then once you're okay that Battleye works, then you add these bits in here, which will allow the testing to work. Now again, switch all of these off when you go live, because these are basic cheat scripts that will allow people to cheat on your server, and you clearly don't want that. Those are just things to allow the debugging mode of the system to work. So what we're going to do is, once again, we're going to go back to our server folder where we've configured it. So that is DayZ CFG. We're going to go to the server.cfg, I believe is the file, and in here we're going to find the thing that says Battleye, and we're going to set that to 0. And the reason we're setting that to 0 is, once again, we want to make sure that Battleye doesn't kick you while we're making sure that the scripts are installed correctly. So we'll close that down, minimize these things out of the way. We can close this particular zip file now, we're no longer using it. And now what we want to do is, just like last time, we want to open up the Xampp control panel. This is the panel that will let you start up your Apache configuration and then start up your SQL server. So you can see that's all running correctly. Now what we want to do is we want to, once again, start our server. But I have got rid of the wrong folder, I think. I have indeed. So we'll close that one, open that one back up and make it just the right size. We want to go up one, and here we have start server. So again, starting the server starting ticks pop up. I'm sure each of those ticks means something, but they don't bother to tell us what it is, so it can't be that important. And then we just wait a moment. And we wait a moment longer. There we go. Dedicated server has been created. Host identity has been created. So now that that is running, it's correctly connected. I'm going to now pause the video, open DayZ up, and show you once I'm inside how it works. Back in a second. Okay, so here we are. We're in DayZ. You can see the server's appeared. So we will double click on the server. I'm sure that's the correct password once again. Excellent. So you can see on the left hand side down the bottom here, there is no red Battleye text popping up. That's because, like I said, Battleye has been disabled. You can see the mission file is now substantially larger than it was in the last video as well, like to the order of 500 kilobytes larger, because now each player that connects needs to download and verify all of the text that we've just added for those mods, so that their client can execute them as well. So we can see here it starts downloading. I'm not exactly sure what causes the pausing, where it downloads a chunk, stops, downloads a chunk, stops, downloads a chunk, stop. I know that it does take quite a while the very first time. After that it happens much more quickly. It's really not generally a big deal, but we can see it's all kind of working. We click continue, and then in just a matter of moments it should connect us and everything should be good. I can see by looking at my hard drive light that it's thinking, it's making sure everything works. I don't know where I'm going to spawn actually, because I think I died at the end of the last video. So, I have spawned near Stolichny. That's kind of cool. I don't think I've ever spawned here before. But you can see that everything seems to have worked the way that DayZ works. I'm not sure if this is going to be a good time to try and find a vehicle, but what I want to try and do is just try and last long enough that I can have some AI spawn, because I want to demonstrate that the AI is actually working. And I also noticed that after I mentioned yesterday that I had spawned 30 vehicles, I actually had a better look at the database, and it had actually spawned 37 vehicles. They were just over on the second page. So for those of you who want to have a maximum vehicle cap, you probably have to run that script about 5 or 6 times. It seems that something around the mid-50s is the maximum that you can get, because after that you start to have it exceeding its own internal server cap. I don't know what sets that variable. If I can work out what in the database sets how many vehicles you can have, I might look at changing that, tweaking that. But I'm not hearing any gunshots at the moment, so I will probably pause the video now and come back once I think I've got some AI spawned. So hopefully it's going to be a seamless transition for you guys, and I will be back in just a second. Okay, good news guys. Chopper flying over. Now that was an AI chopper. I know it's an AI chopper because I'm not flying it, and if I have time to get away from these zombies for a moment, I should be able to show you that there's no, well, you guys can trust me, there's nobody but me on the server, certainly nobody flying a chopper. So we can now see that the chopper worked, and so what I'm going to be able to do now is hopefully I'm going to stop the recording, I'm going to turn off the video, and then I'm going to go back and turn Battleye on and show you what happens with Battleye running. Oh, there it comes, another chopper's done a bit of a loop around me. So yeah, I will be back in just a few moments, hopefully. Okay guys, so everything worked just fine. You could see the choppers, no bandits on foot spawn, but that's okay, they definitely could spawn. What we are going to do is we're just going to open up the server log and just confirm that nothing crazy happened. So we're going to open up CFG DayZ, and here is the log, it's the RPT file. We're going to open that up, see if anything, like I said, anything crazy is in here. Scrolling down, lots of updating classes. Okay, so we have a look. It says starting Sarge AI version 1.5 on a dedicated server, so that is good. We come down a little bit, so there you go, you can see that it spawned 57 objects, vehicles, so dynamic spawning started. So we keep coming down, so it's checking out all the vehicles, looking at them all, come down. What we're looking to make sure is there's nothing that mentions anything about a hacker. So here, login loaded, I'm spawned, survivor should spawn at Stolichny, I did. Server player sync cannot sync me. There's a position in debug problem, so it cleaned me up, and then probably somewhere down here spawned me again. Not totally sure where that happened, but this is just, you know, random server crappy stuff. Somewhere I should spawn. Server cannot sync me again, position in debug, so it should have deleted me again. Had to delete 2 uncontrolled zombies. I'm not totally sure what happened with me, but it definitely worked. Somewhere here there should have been where I spawned. It's probably just after this line that said I failed in debug. The rest of these I think all worked. And then there was somewhere down here, yeah, there we go, player disconnect. So I disconnected, so we know that that worked. So I mean, it definitely worked. There's no areas in there that you wouldn't really expect to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to, like I said, turn Battleye on, save that, and then we're just going to quickly have a look. We're going to delete that log. The Hive extension log, same thing, we're going to open that up and have a bit of a look. So we had a bunch of errors where it couldn't connect correctly to the Hive, and then from that point on, everything just worked. This is just a log of all the information that it's passing backwards and forwards to the server database, so we don't need that. And then the server console log, there won't really be much in here, just I am using a modified file. I don't know why that keeps coming up. I think that's because I've modified the script files that the mission runs from the multiplayer mission, not because any of my regular stuff is modified. And then I connect, reads the mission mod, reads me, starts everything up, and then I disconnect. So exactly as we would expect to see it. I'm going to delete that log as well. Now in this folder here, so CFG, DayZ, Battleye, is where all of your Battleye filters are kept. There are lots and lots and lots of different Battleye filters in here, some more important than others. Scripts.txt and another one which is set variable value will probably come up, and then there's another one which is like MP something, MP event handler. Those are the 3 that you will normally see, but to start off with, we're going to go back to Sarge AI, and we're going to see these things here, and like I said, we're not going to change those. We don't want to change those because those allow a little bit of cheating. In the event that you do get a kick for one of them, which could happen, I don't think that it will, but if it does happen, you know that that's where you have to come. So other than those ones, this is no help. So what do you do to find out what scripts you have to change? Well, what you do is you run the server, and when you run the server and try to connect to it, you will get kicked off, and you will get kicked off over and over and over and over again until you fix all the script problems. So what I'm going to show you now is how to go about diagnosing what script problem you have and fixing it. So we're going to start the server. Again, just the same as before. I'm going to meet you guys once I'm inside the server and I'm about ready to connect to it. So back in a second. Okay guys, so here I am. I'm back ready to connect to the server. So we're going to click on it. We're going to click on join. Password again. And you can see this time it has initialized the Battleye client. So we're going to click OK, and very quickly we're going to get kicked out this time. Now, depending on whether it kicks us straight away, sometimes this can actually cause the client to hang if it has a really big script error at a point where the client doesn't know how to deal with it. But most often you'll get into the game and then you'll get kicked out once you're in the game. So you can see here everything is correct and up to date. We'll hit continue. We get in. It should be waiting for me to spawn. You can see that it's not spawning me, which I had to kill myself in the end of the last video because I couldn't actually abort while those zombies were near me. It kept trying to give me a 30-second timer, so I just killed myself. So what I'm going to do is give it a few more seconds, and I'm hoping, there we go, I'm hoping it will come up with the script error that you will see on the screen so that I can then effectively kill it. So once again, I'm probably going to have to run for some time. But what I will most likely do is just run until I get the script error, and then once I get the script error, I will show you guys what it says. So I'm going to pause the video and be back in just a moment. Okay guys, so whoops, you can see here the chopper has spawned. Again, I don't know if that's a friendly chopper, but we haven't had any script restrictions yet from that chopper, you know, appearing and flying around. We've got a bunch of zombies over there, it looks like. So I'm just going to keep playing until I find some bandits and until I get a script restriction that actually kicks me. The code itself is actually fairly good. You don't get a lot of script restrictions, but you do get some. I'm just going to throw a flare at those zombies, get their attention. Clearly that didn't work the way that it should have. Kamenka. I think that means I'm completely in the opposite direction from where I actually want to be. I think it's much more likely I want to be this way. So I'm going to go for a bit of a run, and hopefully in between here and the next town I'm going to find something. Yeah, I guess we'll see how we go. Back soon. Okay guys, so I got my very first script restriction. You were kicked off the game, Battleye script restriction number 103. That's important. The important parts are, it says script and it says 103. So that means we need to go to the script.log file to find out what the issue is, and it's number 103 we're looking for. So I'm going to, again, pause the recording and meet you back at the text files. Back soon. Okay, so we've shut the server down. We're going to now go back to our file, which was our DayZ CFG to Battleye. And we're going to look in here, and there's a file called scripts.log, just like I said there would. So we're going to open that up, and we can see in here there's a whole lot of different scripts that I'm running. 151, these are all running. They're all okay, they're just logging. You can see though, there is a lot of that particular script running. Now you have the option, if you want to, of taking that particular script, which is 151, that keeps repeating over and over and over, and you can actually turn it off. That way it stops your server filling up your log file. I'm not going to do that, but what I am going to do is show you script 103, which is if cron ups debug is greater than 0, then hint silent something or other. Now hint silent I know to be the bit that causes the problem, but normally how would you find out what's causing the problem? Well, what you do is you open up scripts.txt, and I'm actually going to open them up as two separate windows because that's just a little bit easier to manage. And I'll get that one to take up part of the file, part of the window, and I'll get that one, if everything goes well, to take up the other part. And we'll see if we can't sort of split screen this sort of. Yeah, we'll see how this works. Okay, so again, we had this bit here that was the error that was caused, and so it's something in between these two quotation marks that's causing the problem. So what you would generally do is you would want to start off with the very first bit and try and see if anything mentions, for example, targets. Now it says 103. So what you could do is you could come over to this file here and actually count scripts. The very first line is line 0. So we would want to come down, and you'd think we'd want to go to line 103, except we don't quite want to go to 103 because any line that has a comment on it doesn't count. So that isn't really 81, that one's 81, if that makes sense, although there's other comments. But what I do is I go to here and it says 103, so I know it has to be at least past line 103, and then I start looking from here. The very first one is has weapon. That doesn't appear anywhere. The next one is hide body. Does that appear? No, there's no talk about hiding a body. Now it could be easy for you to count. Personally, I know that for me it's not easy to just count. So I look down, look down, look down, and here we have hint. Okay, and we can see that it says if it contains hint, which this does because that contains hint, then it could kick it, except it says exclamation point hint silent. So that means if the text says hint but hint is in the word hint silent, don't kick for that. It's like, okay, so it's not that one. But you can see as soon as we highlight it, it's appeared down here. So 5, which means log it in the logs and kick the person if it sees the word hint silent. and then it has these things here which are called exceptions. But the exception has to be exactly the way it's written inside these areas here. And so mine has exclamation point, hint silent, past text, format, open, and then you have to have a slash. You can see here I've got hint silent, past text, format, open square bracket, no slash. So that means that because it's in a format that's just a little bit different, that means it's probably going to be kicking me for that particular script restriction there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the end and I'm going to copy the text exactly as I have it here and say hint silent past text, and then I'm going to say exclamation point, quotation marks, and inside those quotation marks I'm going to put the bit that it's kicking me for, which is hint silent past text. So that should now stop it. It should now come to this line and go, I need to kick the person if this appears, except if it's in this format, which it is, and it's going to go, in that case I won't kick them. If you want to be super safe, you can actually copy the whole thing, because the more specific you are about the script that you don't want the person to get kicked for, the less likely it is that hackers can use it. But you can see that the bit that we have already really closely matches one of the exceptions already, so that should be fine just the way that it is. So now what we do is we save the file, and that update has been made, so we should now not get a script restriction 103. So we're going to close those down, minimize those. What I do now is I now delete all the log files. That way I know that anything that comes up is fresh from the time that I ran the server. So delete those log files. We're going to delete all of these log files as well, and then we're going to run the server again, and then I will meet you guys in the server and we will see if we get kicked from a different restriction. But basically at this point it's just an iterative process. So each time it kicks you for some particular script restriction, or a remote control restriction, or remote executable restriction, whatever it kicks you for, you have to come back into here and you have to find what it is, and then you have to add the exception that stops it for kicking people for that. Now, what some people will tell you to do is they will say, just change the 5 to a 1, because what that means is it will log it but not kick you for it. The problem with doing that is, let's say you had a particular thing where your AI was rearming itself. You might say, well, I'm going to take add magazine, let's say it was a 5. You're going to say, I'm going to take add magazine, and I'm going to say it's a 1 now instead of a 5. That means if someone calls that, it's not going to kick them, it's just going to log it. What that does is that opens up the opportunities for hackers to try that piece of script and not get kicked by it. So, these are things that you want to be really careful with changing, and you only want to change the bare minimum. Clearly, if you just deleted every single line in this file, it wouldn't find any restrictions and it wouldn't kick anyone for it. But again, that kind of defeats the purpose of having Battleye. And again, the idea is to make things as safe as you possibly can. So each of these things that is a 5 is something that the person's going to get kicked for. Set damage, for example. If anyone uses the set damage script, it will kick them. No exceptions. And the reason for that is the game itself will set damage to any target that you hit. If you have a need to call a script that sets the damage on something, that's probably because you're cheating in some way, and you don't want to do that. So I guess, I'm going to jump back in now, see if I can get another script restriction to show you just a second example of how things work. Hopefully it won't take too long, and I'll be back in a second. Great news, guys. I got kicked for another script. This time, script number 238. Same thing again, script restriction number 238 is the important bit. I say great news because this time I didn't have to run around for 15 minutes to make it happen. It just happened instantly. So, 238, let's go find out what the culprit is and work out how we fix it. Back soon. Okay, so here we are again, guys. Again, we're back in the, up here, scripts.log file. Come down, we can see the 238 that I got kicked for, and this is the code that called it. I'm expecting it's either create marker or set marker that caused it, but let's go back to the scripts.txt file. Again, we want to look down at a line that's after line 238, and there's not very much after that. So after 238, so it's probably not that one. So we've got to keep going down to see what we can find that matches up with what it is that we're looking for. Whoops. So it was matinee, highway, bridge. I haven't split screened. Okay, let's try and split screen this once again. So back down to the bottom. So matinee, highway, bridge. Okay, so there's marker, but it's marker underscore something, so that's definitely not create marker or set marker. Player add weapon. There's a bunch of things at the bottom that don't seem to be correct. Actually, there's one that does seem to match up though. That was just a bit up, I think. There we go. Wasteland. So here we have create marker wasteland. Here we have wasteland. So that is probably the piece of code that we're looking for. Again, it's a bit of trial and error, but we say we want to add an exception, and then we want to copy the way that it's used. So create marker wasteland. Now the reason I picked this one is because when we paste that in, you can see we now have quotations within quotations. Now the system won't like that. It will think that the string ends there. So what you have to do is you have to add a backslash in between each of the quotations that you want to show up in the string. So to make it show up like this, we put it in just like this. And so now we will save, and then fingers crossed if everything goes well, when we go back into the game, it will all work exactly as we would expect it to. So once again, we're going to save. We are going to, again, delete the log files. In this case, there was only one log file, which is how quickly it ran that script and kicked me out. Console log, hive log, server report file. And once again, I'm going to run the server, and I will meet you guys when I get my next script restriction, or conversely, if I don't get any script restrictions, we know that we're done. I guess this is one of those how long is a piece of string thing, because you can't possibly test every single thing that can happen. You know, there's just too many different things that can happen when you have a complex script like something that handles AI. You know, you might not find there's a problem until someone kills an AI, or the AI kills a player, or maybe when you first shoot down an AI helicopter, or maybe when an AI helicopter shoots you in a vehicle and blows something up. You know, there's so many different combinations of how things can happen in DayZ. You can't possibly test them all, especially when you're running a small server. So realistically, what I would suggest is play a couple of hours, and if after a couple of hours you haven't found any script kicks, you're probably good to go live and start testing. The important thing though is if someone gets kicked for a script, that you as a server administrator really quickly know how to find the problem. You tell everyone, you apologize, you stop the server, you fix the Battleye script issue, you restart the server, make everything work, and you know, you just generally be a responsive, good person about it. You know, you don't complain about how it's a crappy mod or the person's doing something wrong, and you don't instantly call a person a hacker. You know, you just kind of common sense. Just be a nice person, and people will be nice back to you. People will understand that you're doing your best and you're trying what you can, and sometimes you make mistakes. In this particular case, it's one of those things. You can't test everything, so you test what you can. You try and run all the different scenarios, but if someone gets kicked, you apologize, you fix it, and you let them back on as soon as you can. So again, I'm going to jump in the server, see if I get kicked, and see what happens. Back in a second. Okay guys, so there we go. I am in the server. Everything is working. I haven't been kicked in the first 30 seconds. I didn't get kicked logging in. So basically what that means is I'm probably good to keep testing out the server. Now I'm sure there's going to be people out there who are going to say, well, can you just provide me the scripts so that I don't have to go through this. The problem is every version of DayZ, every mod of DayZ, whether it's a different map or it's a different mod like maybe DayZ or DayZ Plus, Breaking Point even, they all use different scripting, and because they all use different mission scripting, they all have different Battleye filters set up to work with them. So the problem is you need the specific version that I'm using right now for the script to work. You also need the specific mods that I've got installed for that to work as well. So generally it's just easier to manage it yourself, and I think it's an important learning lesson, because if you have script issues, people aren't going to want to play on your server. And the solution isn't just to turn Battleye off or anything like that. The solution really is to understand it, go through the process that I went through. It can be a bit of a pain if it happens 10 or 15 times, like it can if you're putting in some really complicated scripts. Generally speaking though, it works really well. It might have taken 10 minutes for me, after you kind of get through the loading time. It might have taken 10 minutes to get it all set up and all working, and 10 minutes to be able to have hours and hours of fun with your friends on a server, and know that you're going to be safe in case someone else gets on or anything like that, I think is definitely worth it. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you guys have liked it. I'm just going to play for a little while because it's fun, and there might even be an addendum to the end of this video if I find another server kick and need to show you guys how to work it. But otherwise, thank you very much for watching. Astocky out.